Hello everybody, welcome once again to Lutys Chainsaw Mods. Really freezing in here today, fire's going, it's warmed it up a bit now, but I've been doing a bit of dyno testing today, and I just thought I'd go through a few sort of things, a few results and what have you, tell you, sort of show you how it's working and all the rest of it. So done an adjustment on my load arm. Basically I've moved the foot further along the arm to reduce the power that it shows, because I put a standard Parker, the one over there up on the back. I put a standard Parker which should be 3.1 horsepower on it, and it was showing a pretty close to 4 horse, and I knew that wasn't quite right. I know it'd be a little bit over 3.1. Anyway, I've adjusted it, played about with it, and I've actually got it set to 3.3 horsepower, which I think for a running standard saw, going from a standard 3.1 horse to 3.3 is probably about correct. So I put myself a little pin in the arm so that the arm's solid now. Obviously I can still adjust it if I ever want to, like I just take the pin out, unscrew the pin and move it and re-drill another hole. It's turning out to be, because this dyno, as I had said on one of my previous videos, it cost me under £40. I think it's about 37 quid to build. Mountain bike hub and disc and caliper, which I got off Amazon. I bought it as a pack, but I've actually had it for quite a while, and I've had a look, and you can't seem to get them as a pack anymore. You have to sort of buy them separately, but at the end of the day that's all it is. So if you ever want to do one, all the other bits are just made out of bits of steel and what have you. And I've even had to make the load arm myself completely. But you know, you can come up with something which only works off a cable, the same as a bike. So I'll just show you actually the drive hub, which I talked about before, but I don't know whether you've got to have a good look at it or not. I'll just bear with me for a minute. I'll just put you down here, to see what you can see. So if you do want to build one, I've found the way I've got it now, it seems to be the best solution. So I've got originally the guide bar was a standard guide bar. I got the star drive off the nose, you know, the nose wheel, and I was actually running this hub off the nose wheel originally, but because it was solid between here and the hub, I was getting a heck of a lot of vibration, because I do my dyno tests, I rely on video. So I put my equipment's down here. My equipment is sorry, it's a bit wobbly, this thing. The equipment is down here, look. So I've got a weighing scale, and I've got 2 RPM meters on it at the moment. I've got plans to have more equipment on it than this. So I've got a temp gauge for the head, and I've got another RPM meter for the actual hub. Now, realistically, the hub drive RPM meter, I've only decided to put that on, or I will be putting it on, in case, because they are pretty powerful, these saws, once they've been modified. So yeah, so there's my equipment. I don't know if you can see that. There's my equipment there, look. And there's a stand here that I put my phone on, and it peers over onto all the equipment. And then I just do my calculations for horsepower. Now, back to what I was on about before. So if you do want to build one of these, I've found the way I've got it at the moment seems to be the best, I think anyway, the best. I've got the best out of it, because as I said, you know, I was using the star drive originally in here, and which was fine for a while, but then over time, as I was doing different tests, I found that the chain was pulling and biting down between the sides of the guide bar and the actual star drive, and it was giving me big issues, to be fair. So yeah, I decided that I needed to change it. Just what I'm doing, just seeing whether I need to disconnect the light. Yeah, I'll take that light off, take that bulb out. It's that's not too bad. So yeah, I decided to change it because it wasn't strong enough, basically. And I built this hub, this drive hub. So yeah, so it's just basically a thick piece of steel, and what I did, I got the old star drive and I drew round it, cut it all out, and then I put 2 steel plates either side and tacked them onto the actual drive in the middle and made myself a new drive hub. And then I welded it onto the actual cycle hub, and I've just ran another saw on it. The Parker came out, like I said, I set the dyno so it would read 3.2 with a standard Parker, which would normally be 3.1 horse, and I did that because it was, you know, it's going to be overpowered a little bit because yeah, it's running. Once you run a saw in, you're going to get more power out of it. It's as simple as that. So I set it to 3.3, which, all right, yes, it's a guess. It is a guess, but nevertheless, that's what I've done. You know, so that worked. It's what I think it should be, about 3. It should be between 3 and 3.5, I think, and I set it to 3.3. So yeah, so what with this drive, if you get this drive the way I've just explained, which is basically now separate from the guide bar, there's a gap, a small gap between the two, and I've also put this on, which is just there's a clamp either side, there's a plate either side, like this, and it's got a sliding slot, so any saws that perhaps are slightly taller or lower or whatever should go on this now. So you just literally slacken this off and then lift the bar up or lower it, whatever you want to do. But the point of this, really more than anything, is to bolt it to the wooden deck, because now I've isolated the vibration from the saw going up the bar and across, which it was doing, into the hub. Obviously the hub is connected to the load arm via the caliper, and when the load arm is pushing down, it was vibrating the area where all my instrumentation is and where my phone sits on here, and it was so difficult to actually get a clear shot of the readings I was getting. You know, it was all over the place. Well, since I've done this, since I've altered it all now, and I've got this clamp and I've got a separate drive now that I made, etc, etc, it's really cut all the vibration down. So I think if you want to build one, that's the way to go. The other thing I found was the pads, they were going down pretty quick, but on the internet you can get performance mountain bike pads. I've put some of them in and they seem a lot better, heck of a lot better. You know, I've done quite a few runs with this now, with it like this, and it's holding together fine. So back to what I was doing. So I set the dyno up, and I've got this. Actually, this was a timber probe, CS580 Chinese Zanoah clone saw. It's got raised compression. It's got a carburetor from a Husqvarna 372 on it, which is a heck of a lot bigger than the standard one that was fitted to this. It's ported, slightly lightened piston, quite heavily ported, very raised compression. It's a smidge over 1 millimeter, the clearance. The squish clearance is a smidge over 1 millimeter. I've also found, I don't know if anybody else uses them, I'll just see if I've got one in here. I found on the internet, actually they might all be fitted, I've got a selection of spark plugs here. Yeah, I've got a selection of spark plugs here. And what I found on the internet as well, these are Chinese, by the way, supposed to be performance plugs. They're not very expensive, to be fair, but I found, yes, I've raised the compression, but so you see that they've got 3 earth probes off the spark plug. It's supposed to be a performance plug, so for one thing you've got more chance of the spark happening because it's going to pick up off one of them probes. But not only that, I mean, it may pick up over 2 at a time, but it'll most likely choose one, because electricity always finds the easiest path, so it will most likely just go down one. But it's got more of a chance of sparking on every stroke. You know, as it soots up and what have you, it's going to choose the better one of the 3 and it's going to spark. And I find these plugs really reliable, to be fair. Now they are Chinese, if you can see that. The Chinese might not be the best. People are going to say, yeah, you know, oh, I only use NGK or I only use Champion or whatever. Like, well, to be fair, I've used all sorts of plugs, and you know, they're pretty much all as good as each other, really, in my opinion anyway. But at the end of the day, it just makes a spark. But the added bonus of fitting these, or the whole point of me doing it, was to take up more combustion space, because like I said, I've got a 1 millimeter squish, but with these extra 2 probes, the 2 earth tongs, if you like, they're going to take up space in the chamber and therefore raise your compression a little bit more. So either way, you're going to get, potentially you're going to get a tiny bit more power. I find them quite good, and I use them in all the saws that I modify. All my saws, rather, I should say, because I've done a bit of work on other people's, but I mostly soup up my own saws. Like, this is the one that I built quite a few years ago actually, this saw. I've used it, it's pretty reliable to be fair, but it was never a full-on performance job, if you like. You know, yeah, it's had a lot done to it. I even make a homemade manifold to get the 372 carburetor on, which they're good. You know, you need a bigger intake manifold. I'll see if I can find one actually. I don't know if I've got one down here. Might have. I think I've got one left that I made, which I'm saving. Yeah, I have. So what I make is the standard. There's the standard rubber intake boot, if you like, for them. So to get the bigger carburetor on, I build my own out of steel, and they're pretty good to be fair. Really open up the power. See the difference in them, in these two. That's the standard one. That's the ones I make, and they're it's nice and short. So it's just slightly shorter than the other one, which helps you get the bigger carburetor in. They're threaded on the one. They're threaded on the carburetor end, and then it's just holes where they bolt onto the engine. So I build them. They're good. You know, them carburetors, the 372 carburetor will go on. I've actually got, for my next build, which is going to be the Parker that I was talking about, the one that I've set to 3.3 horse that I've just got off here. I've got a build planned for that one. And I've just bought an even bigger carburetor. I bought an even bigger one, off a Husqvarna one, off a 390. Which is a 90cc one. Now I've got these 372 carburetors running really well on these saws. Now they really open up the power. As long as you port them, I don't know as it though they work very well on a non-ported saw, the 372 carburetor, but on the full out ported performance saws, they work really well. The 372s do, 372 cars, because obviously they draw more air, a lot more air. They rev a lot higher and they pull more air through the ports and everything. So putting a bigger carburetor on really well, but it's no good just getting a standard saw and banging a big carburetor on, because you're not really gonna, it's not gonna do a lot. You know, it might be a bit more free flowing, but you'll probably find that it'll start to run weak because it can't draw enough fuel over the venturi, enough air over the venturi to draw the fuel out. So I would only ever put them on a ported saw really, and you know, something that's, you know, is going to go well. But you know, maybe a light porting job and an open exhaust might be enough for you to run a 372 carburetor. I don't know, you know, like I said, I only use them once I've done everything else, or once I'm happy with what I've done, raised compression and porting and lightning pistons, then I put my manifold on that I've made, big manifold, and I modify it to take the 372 carbs, and they set up really well on these saws as long as they're capable of using that carburetor. They're really good. But I've got one now which is I think they're a millimetre bigger throughout the whole carburetor than these 372 ones, and they're designed to run a 90cc saw, whereas these for a 75cc saw, these ones, even though it's only a 58cc saw, but like I said, because it's drawing more air, they work really well. They really open them up, you know. So consequently, this one I've just run, I was having issues with the tacho, but I've got two on this, two tachos. That's why really. The one seemed to be I don't know whether it's not capable of running at high speed or something. It kept dropping out at high RPMs, so I wasn't able to read the one, but the other one seemed to be okay. It's not as clear to see on the videos, the other tacho, but you know, I got it. So this saw, and also it's got these big air cleaners that I make, free flowing, so there's no resistance. Look, right where the carb opening is, it just draws through that mesh straight through the sponge. So you've got you're not changing the angle of the airflow at all. I take the neck off that mounted the original air filter. I take that off, get rid of that, and that filter just goes straight onto the back of the carburetor, so that there is no change in flow. So it's just straight shot straight through the carburetor, through the intake manifold, and then through the engine, through the ports and out. I think they work really well. You know, if you do that, you can get more flow out of them. Consequently, the one over the far side, which I'll show you in a minute, that one revs to 18,500 revs. You know, obviously you've got to have the good airflow for it to do that. So you would have to modify your air cleaner if this is how far you're going. But anyway, this saw, I've given it a few runs, and I've got some averages out. So this saw came out pushing at 6,500 RPM. It's pushing 4.3 horsepower, and the best I got out of it was at 7,500 RPM. It pushed 5.2 horsepower after I did the calculation. So 5.2 horsepower, and like I say, it's not as souped up as the other one that I've got, the one that revs to 18,500. I think this revs to about 14,000. This one, the other one revs to 18,500. So this is, it's not, I built it really as a faster usable work saw, you know. So I was a bit conscious when I was doing my mods. I didn't want to eat into the weight of the piston too much. Didn't want to open everything up too much in case I hung a ring on something. But you know, it's got a decent porting job on it, and the big carb and the big intake, like I said. But you know, 5.2 horsepower out of a 58cc saw is nothing to be sort of moaned about, is it? You know, it's not bad, like. It's a reliable saw, this one. I've used it a lot. You can probably see the exhaust I built for it on the video. It's got two outlets. So this basically is one of the what I call short expansion chambers. So it's gutted inside, and then here I build a cone here, put a cone in it with a hole up in the center. So the sides of the cone help to echo the sound waves back towards the port, the exhaust port, to slow down the exhaust a little bit. And then it's got an outlet which is 13mm across. It's an angled outlet because then it doesn't interfere when you're cutting, because it needs to be a usable saw. And then what I did for the can itself, to relieve any pressure in the can, I put another pipe here which just goes into the top of the can, and so that relieves any sort of back pressure, if you like, to allow the exhaust, all the used gases to come out. and it seems to run pretty well. I think the outlets are slightly damp, which means I am losing a little bit of fuel through the exhaust. But it's not a bad attempt, this one. You can actually tell the difference, the feel. And what I want to do, I've got a bit of work to do for a few mates and what have you on different saws and stuff. So I'm going to be doing that, really. But what I'd want to do is eventually get this saw. I've got to get this saw on here, and what I might do, I'll drop this exhaust off, and I've got a standard one, standard can. I'll put the standard can on, and I'll measure the power, and then I'll put this one on, and then I'll measure the power again, and I'll log it all, and I'll sort of be able to see whether or not it is making a difference to this saw. See, the thing is, right, a lot of people say, oh yeah, just do this and just do that. Really, you've got to, if you're making a saw go better, or trying to make it go better, really you need to, any of your mods, you've got to take into account all the aspects of the saw, like, you know, because it's no good putting a big carburetor on, porting it, and then not doing your exhaust, because the exhaust's going to hold it back, and not doing your air cleaner, because that's going to hold it back. So you need to go through everything, in my opinion. You need to go through everything, really, and adjust everything to suit whatever you're doing, you know. That's what I always do anyway, and go through. It's like I say, it's no good just, okay, if you wanted to, I suppose you could drill a few holes in the exhaust and it'll go a little bit better. It'll bring up the speed. It might not necessarily bring the torque up, but it'll bring the speed up a little bit of your saw. You know, yeah, they're okay, doing things like that. Just putting a bigger air cleaner on will make a little bit of difference. Not a great deal. But if you're going into doing porting and stuff, then you need to start thinking, well, okay, I've opened this up, I've opened that up. But, so therefore, I need to feed the saw a bit better. You know, you need to get more air and fuel through the system to make it worthwhile doing. Otherwise, there's no point in porting them, I don't think. So, yeah, so 5.2 horsepower out of 58cc Chinese. Saw. Now the other one, the other saw that I've got, the one that I was just saying about, that revs to 18,500 RPM, is this one. It's this one. It's another. It's another Zanoah clone. What I did actually get this one on the dyno, and it failed really because it's choking itself on fuel. This has got a 372 Husky carb on it as well. Yeah, I can see it a bit better now. This has got a 372 Husky carb on it as well. Took the air filter off this so you can probably see it if you wanted to. Okay, in there, look, 372 carb Husqvarna, the same as that one, but this one has got a really aggressive porting job, and it is definitely faster than this. It's definitely cuts faster than this saw. This is the one that I did a video of it ripping through some wood against a Stihl MS362, another one of my saws. The MS362 is a pretty well standard saw. It's got a little bit of cleaning up on the exhaust port and whatever, but it's standard really. And this one cut through the wood twice as quick. It's on one of my other videos further back if you're interested. I think it's actually labelled as a Zanoah clone racing against the 362 still, MS362, and it was twice as quick. Now if you look, see the exhaust on this one looks standard, doesn't it? It isn't. It's all I've done to this one. It's got a standardly they have a can over the exhaust port with a couple of small holes in it to hold back the flow a little bit. Well, all I've done to it is made the holes in the can at the sides really big, left the small hole in the front of the can, inside I'm talking about now. I left the one in the front of the exhaust port quite small, probably about 10 mil I think it is, but the ones either side are probably about 20 mil, just to allow a bit more flow, but yet the can inside should still allow a little bit of echo. So it's probably better than the standard can. That's another reason why, and I mean another thing I could do, so I could swap that can with this one and just see. You know, I want to do a bit of experimentation on these mufflers, and just to see. That's another thing I do as well. Look, I put sponge in the top boxes and the covers, cut them open, put sponges on, just to allow the heat to come away from the intake, which should keep the air going into your engine a bit cooler, which then the air becomes a bit thicker, if you like, more oxygenated, and will give you gains. So I do that. But yeah, so I wouldn't mind doing this, just doing a bit of experimenting on the exhaust that I've made. I think I've only done these two at the moment on the Zanoah clones. They definitely make the saw better, and they make the saws feel better when you're using them. I can tell you that much. But I don't know about actual horsepower outputs until I've tested them on my dyno. So I'm going to do that. Let's put that one back over here. Yeah, I'm going to do that, and then get it on this dyno and see how it goes. I'm pleased with this thing because, like I say, it's dirt cheap. It's got a wooden base. I had to hand make all this load lever. That's all handmade, but it works fine on the disc. There's the load arm, see, nice and free. It just sits on the weighing scale. So if you want to build one, this is what I would do. I would put brackets down to hold your bar firm to the deck, separate the drive from your bar as well, which then eliminates the vibration from your saw. Because if you're going to video the readings like I do, because it's too difficult to look at 3 or 4 different gauges and what have you, as well as operate the dyno. So I just video it and then I go through it and pick out the different readings. It's really good. Really pleased with it. It's worth the effort I put into making this. So yeah, so this is going to go out on my channel, another lutys chainsaw mods video. And like I say, I think probably the next time I come on here, it could be a case that I am doing muffler runs on the dyno with different mufflers. you know, it doesn't take long to whip these mufflers off, but that's probably what I'll do, and see what results I get. So I'm going to sign out now from Lutys Chainsaw Mods. I've got a little bit of work I've got to do for other people at the moment, so I'll be getting on with that. So I'm going to let you go now. So thank you once again for watching Lutys Chainsaw Mods, and bye for now.